welcome back to Under the Baobab Tree. Tonight we travel to the Kingdom of Benin, a place of bronze and blood, secrets and shadows. Come with me now on this journey. Do you remember our travels last week? If not, do go back and have a look, and then come back here again and let us begin. The night is soft. Imagine yourself beneath vast West African skies where stars gleam like silver beads threaded onto the dark fabric of the heavens. The air smells of earth and faint wood smoke, and somewhere far away, a drum keeps time with the beating of your own heart. Here, in this stillness, we travel back through centuries to a place of both wonder and fear. The royal city of Benin, the Kingdom of Benin, was no ordinary land. Rising from the forests of what is today southern Nigeria, it grew into one of Africa's most extraordinary states. Mighty Benin, its rulers, the Obas, were regarded as divine. Their word was law, and their presence sacred. Those who served in their courts were as much priests as officials, for Benin was a place where the everyday and the spiritual were woven together in an intricate, almost invisible cloth. Behind its mighty earth walls lived people bound by ritual, loyalty, and a rhythm of life shaped by their Oba, their king. The kingdom thrived on tribute and trade, amassing great wealth and creating magnificent works of art. But it was also a world of strict laws and severe punishments. For a commoner, life in Benin could be as restrictive as it was beautiful. Tonight, we venture into the very heart of this kingdom. We are going to explore what it really meant to live in the shadow of the Oba, the king of Benin. Remember, in this world, the king's word was law. Every aspect of life, from the rituals to the arts to trade, was carefully regulated. To understand Benin, we must first understand its ruler, the Oba. In the Benin kingdom, the king wasn't just a leader, he was a god. Imagine a man covered in ornaments, his face hidden behind a bronze mask, each movement echoing the power and majesty of a lion. This was the Oba. His steps were measured, his gaze commanding respect. To look him in the eyes was a privilege and a risk, for in his presence one could be blinded, not just physically, but metaphorically, too. We find ourselves now in the Oba's palace, surrounded by towering walls crafted from coral beads. Within these walls, the Oba held court, dispensed justice, and received tribute. But these same walls also concealed a darker reality. Now we turn our attention to the palace servants of Benin. Their days were spent in the service of the Oba, carrying out daily tasks that kept the palace running. But their nights were filled with fear, for they lived in perpetual danger of the Oba's wrath. Remember, in this kingdom, a single mistake could cost a life. As the sun sets over Benin, casting long shadows across the kingdom, we, too, must prepare for the night. The Oba is retiring to his quarters, and with him, we bid farewell to this world for now. But before we go, let us think about what we have seen. The Kingdom of Benin was a place of immense power and beauty, but also of fear and danger. The Oba was a godlike figure whose word was law, and those who served him lived in constant peril. We will walk in the footsteps of a warrior, a trader, and a woman seeking justice. Until then, beneath the vast Benin sky, the stars remain our only witnesses. The drums in the distance fade into the night. All is silent now, except for the whisper of the wind through the tall grasses and the rustle of leaves overhead. The fire has died down to embers, and the darkness is deep and all-encompassing. It is a darkness that holds the secrets of a kingdom, a darkness that conceals both great beauty and unspeakable horrors. For in Benin, even the night had its own language. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoy this episode and others, please give us a like and subscribe for more exciting African histories. And if you have any thoughts or ideas you would like to share, please leave them in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. You are now under Baobab skies. Welcome to the world of the Benin Empire. Today we begin a new journey as we meet our characters who will take us through the great cities of the 15th century. African empires. We're going to start our story in the bustling city of Benin, the capital of the mighty Benin Empire. It is 1472, and in this bustling city, the Oba, or king, holds court. Around him are nobles and chiefs, all eager to please the Oba and advance their own interests. Beneath them are merchants, artisans, and farmers, each contributing to the city's wealth and growth. And at the very bottom, unseen and unheard, are the servants. Our story today focuses on one of these servants, a young man named Uware. For Uware, life in the Oba's palace has always been about silence and shadows. He moves through corridors where sunlight dares not tread, his footsteps muffled by layers of history and hushed voices. Each morning, when the sky is still soft with the promise of dawn, Uware wakes. His room is small, barely more than a niche in the palace wall, but it is his haven within this labyrinth of rituals and regality. He dresses quickly, his movements economical, his gaze downcast. Today is another day of service, and in the Oba's palace there is no greater luxury than wasted time or movement. As he leaves his quarters, he passes other servants, their faces half hidden by indigo veils or red clay masks. They exchange brief, tight smiles, acknowledging each other's servitude without a word. Stepping out into the vast courtyard, Uware feels the familiar pull of obeisance. Before him rises the great bronze gates, adorned with scenes from past victories and rituals. They are locked shut now, hiding from view the treasures and terrors that lie within. As the gate is opened and he enters, the air shifts. It smells of incense and anticipation. This is the belly of the beast, the heart of a ritual engine that beats with the pulse of a kingdom. The Oba is not just a king here, he is a god. And every action, every breath, every heartbeat echoes that divinity. Tall, dark pillars stand like silent sentinels, holding up the eaves and secrets of the palace. On the walls are plaques, not of bronze, but of human skin, stretched taut and intricately carved. These are trophies, testaments to the Oba's power. And as Uware walks on the coral red sand, he knows he is treading on sacred ground. The palace is a city within a city, a world unto itself, where time is measured in ceremonies and obedience is the only virtue. Here, even the air you breathe is ritual. Uware remembers the words of his late father, a former servant who died tending the royal python. When the Oba sneezes, his father had whispered, "You must cover your ears, lest the sound sully your soul." Each chamber he passes seems to pulse with unseen energy. Some are filled with the rhythmic chanting of priests tending eternal fires, while others hold dancers practicing movements so old they predate written memory. Even the courtyards are not merely open spaces, but stages for rituals honoring ancestors or preparing for war. In one corner, masked dancers leap and twirl, their movements echoing ancient battles. Their costumes, a riot of feathers and animal skins, seem to breathe with each powerful step. Theirs is a dance of war, fierce and hypnotic, a celebration of violence that both thrills and terrifies. Uware watches from the periphery, a knot of apprehension tightening in his stomach. These dances are more than entertainment. They're a display of the Oba's power, a reminder of the kingdom's strength. And yet, as mesmerizing as the dance is, Uware knows he must remain focused on his duty. He's not here to watch, but to serve. As the dance reaches its crescendo, he turns away, heading deeper into the labyrinthine palace. The air grows cooler here, the light dimmer, as if the very spirit of the Oba's ancestors weighs heavy in the stillness. He passes shrines where priests offer prayers and sacrifices, their voices low and reverent. Each shrine is a testament to the kingdom's past, a reminder that greatness is built on the bones of those who came before. Finally, he arrives at his destination, a large chamber dimly lit by oil lamps. Inside, men and women clad in white linen work with intense focus, their tools of trade laid out on mats woven with indigo threads. This is the workshop of the Eigen, the royal metalworkers. And Yue's task is simple: fetch water. Yet even this menial chore carries an undercurrent of danger. The Eigen hold a unique position in the palace. They craft not just any metals, but the sacred metals that adorn the Oba's person. Each piece is imbued with power, each curve and turn resonating with the Oba's spiritual essence. As Yue approaches the metalworkers, their tools lay on a mat, glinting in the lamplight like captured stars. There are knives with hilts carved in the shape of snarling leopards, swords with blades as keen as whispers, and staffs tipped with the sharp, dark points of sacrifice. These are not mere weapons or adornments. They are extensions of the Oba's power. And Yue, with calloused hands and a humble request, becomes a part of this potent ritual. Each movement is careful, each step measured. He does not dare speak, for words can be weapons too. And this is a place where silence is golden. One of the metalworkers, his face lined with age and wisdom, looks up from his work. His eyes, like polished bronze, seem to see not just Yue, but the essence of his being. Without a word, Yue offers the calabash, its clay skin cool against the heat of the forge. The metalworker takes it, his weathered hands surprisingly gentle as he accepts the offering. His eyes, though, remain sharp, assessing, knowing. For a moment, their gazes lock, and Yue feels the weight of generations of craftsmanship, of tradition, of power. Then, as suddenly as it began, the moment passes. The metalworker nods, a silent acknowledgement of service rendered, and returns to his work. The air is thick with the scent of burning charcoal and the unspoken language of devotion. Yue stands waiting, watching, ready to serve. And in the heart of the Benin Empire's bustling capital, under the watchful eyes of history, the ritual continues. As Yue stood waiting, he couldn't help but steal glances at the objects surrounding him. The air in the workshop was heavy with the scent of metals and magic, and each object seemed to hum with a power that was both fascinating and terrifying. There were daggers with handles shaped like human hands, their fingers curled as if reaching for the heavens. And there were swords whose blades were etched with seams from epic battles, their hilts wrapped in the hides of slain enemies. But what truly caught Yue's eye were the ceremonial staffs, their tips adorned with the heads of leopards, their bodies entwined with serpents. These were not just weapons or symbols of authority. They were conduits of power, focusing the Oba's will into deadly effect. And as he watched the Egigu work, Yue realized that each object he saw was more than just metal. It was a testament to the Benin Empire's strength, artistry, and spiritual depth. But amidst this spectacle of power, Yue's mind raced. He knew that for every grand ceremony, for every beautiful object created, there was a cost. Human sacrifices, villages raided, enemies subdued. The Benin Empire's rise to prominence had been swift and brutal, and he couldn't help but wonder about the price of such greatness. As the minutes ticked by, Yue felt a growing unease. The workshop, with its displays of raw power, was a stark reminder of the precariousness of life in the Oba's court. One misstep, one accusation, one moment of weakness could have dire consequences. And as he waited patiently, he knew that his life, like the metals being shaped in the forge, was malleable, capable of being reshaped by forces beyond his control. And so Uer stands, not just as a servant fetching water, but as a witness to the Benin Empire's grandeur and brutality. The quiet dignity of his servitude becomes a testament to the humanity that endures even in the face of overwhelming power. His story is a reminder that in the grand tapestry of history, it's often the quietest voices that echo the loudest. In the heart of Benin, the palace never truly slept. Even in the deepest hours of the night, shadows shifted along its corridors, carrying duties too sacred to share with the outside world. Servants lived under curfews as strict as chains. They could not wander freely after dusk, could not leave the palace walls without permission, and could not speak of what they had seen. Their lives belonged to ritual silence, to secrecy enforced by both law and fear. For those who served the Orba, curfew meant more than staying indoors. It meant that one's thoughts, one's very dreams, had to be guarded. The palace carried within it rituals hidden from ordinary eyes. Sacrifices, chants, midnight processions, and coded gestures only understood by those who had been initiated. To speak of these things, even in whispers, was dangerous. The power of the Orba rested not just on warriors or wealth, but on the mysteries only his palace held. When the sun dipped below the horizon, the palace didn't just close its gates. It drew a veil over its activities, sheltering secrets that could bring favor or ruin. For servants, curfew wasn't just about lights out. It was about shutting down a part of their lives. After sunset, they could not be merely servants. They had to become ghosts, haunting the palace in silence. They say the Oba's power is rooted in his connection to the spirits, and that connection is strongest when all eyes are closed. But while secrecy protected the Oba's magic, it shackled the servants, binding their tongues with invisible ropes. At night, they were more than observers. They were participants in rituals older than the city itself. But what did they see? What did they hear? What truths did they hold that the world couldn't handle? I am the curator. Welcome to the British Museum. Imagine you are an Oba's servant. You have seen great things, mystical things, powerful things. The sun is setting. Soon the Oba will retreat to his inner chambers, leaving you in the echoing vastness of the courtyard. What do? You can't just relax. You must start your vigil. What do you do? How do you pass the night? As the last rays of sunlight faded, the servants scattered, not to play, but to vanish into their roles. The cook would turn his hut into a shrine to ancestral spirits. The tailor would hang protective charms over his loom. Even the musicians tuned their drums with incantations. The palace wasn't just a building, it was a universe where everything had a spiritual counterpart. And those who served the Orba had to navigate both. After the official curfew, the palace became a labyrinth of shifting shadows and whispered prayers. Every servant knew his place, every movement echoing with meaning. The palace was a stage, and they were players reciting an ancient script. There were no overlords or nobles present to watch their performance, but the audience was more critical. It was made up of spirits, of ancestors, and of the Orba in his innermost sanctum. As the moon climbed higher, the rituals intensified. Some servants prayed for guidance, others for protection. A few danced to drive out evil spirits. Each action was designed not just to ward off darkness, but to invite the right kind of darkness. The darkness that brought power, prosperity, and peace to Benin. The servants weren't just enduring the night, they were shaping it, bending it to their needs. And yet, as the first hints of dawn touched the sky, the pace quickened. Servants had to hurry, to complete their evening ablutions, to finish their nightly devotions. The OBA would soon rise again, bringing with him the demands of a new day. So, while they bathed in the pale moonlight, they bathed not just for ritual purity, but to wash away the traces of the night before. As they chanted their prayers, they prayed not just for themselves, but for the Orba, for the kingdom, for the unseen powers that watched over them all. In Benin, the night wasn't just a time of rest. It was a time of transformation, a time when the boundaries between the mundane and the mystical blurred. For the Oba's servants, it was a time to embrace the unknown, to dance with the spirits, and to keep the secrets that made Benin great. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. Do you remember the rules? No speaking, no laughter, no sudden movements. Remember, tonight we are guests of the spirits. We have seen the importance of secrecy, the heavy cloak of unspoken rituals and hidden ceremonies. But what about the Oba himself? What secrets did he keep close to his chest? How did he use secrecy to maintain his power and protect his kingdom? The Oba is not just a king. He is the custodian of Benin's history, culture, and spirituality. His knowledge is a treasure trove, a wellspring of wisdom that sustains Benin's identity. But this knowledge is also his power, the power that makes him who he is, the supreme authority in his domain. And like any precious thing, he guards it closely. His secrets are not just about magic or rituals. They are about the very essence of Benin, about the connection between the past and the present, about the link between the spiritual and the material. They are the foundation on which his authority rests. By keeping these secrets close, he maintains the integrity of his role, the sanctity of his position. But secrecy is a double-edged sword. While it protects, it also isolates. The Oba cannot share his burdens, his doubts, his fears. He must carry them alone, lest they tarnish the image, the unassailable image of the Oba. This is the price of his kingship, the solitude at the heart of the palace, the inability to trust even those closest to him for fear of betrayal or misunderstanding. And yet, despite the burden of secrecy, the Oba remains a beacon, a symbol of continuity, a living embodiment of Benin's traditions. He is the repository of its history, its customs, its values, and in keeping its secrets, he ensures its survival. For the Oba, secrecy is not just a means of maintaining power, it is a way of life, a commitment to preserving the soul of his kingdom. It is the Oba's most potent weapon and his greatest burden. Let's pause here for a moment. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. The Oba has his secrets, the servants have theirs. But what about the kingdom of Benin? What secrets does it hold? What stories lie hidden beneath the surface of this great empire? Benin's greatness is evident in its art, its architecture, its wealth. But beneath this grandeur lies a network of stories, tales of bravery, wisdom, innovation, and resilience. These stories are the kingdom's lifeblood, shaping its character, guiding its actions, and binding its people together. Like the Oba, Benin keeps its secrets close. Its stories are not mere tales. They are powerful narratives that have shaped the kingdom's identity. Its myths and legends are integral to its cultural fabric, defining its values, its beliefs, and its relationship with the spiritual world. They are a source of inspiration, a wellspring of strength that the people of Benin have drawn upon for centuries. These stories are also a tool of social control, ensuring that the kingdom's traditions, customs, and laws are upheld. They are a way of transmitting knowledge, of teaching the young and reminding the old of what it means to be a member of the Benin community. But Benin's secrets go beyond its legendary past. They lie in its innovations, its inventions, and its achievements. The kingdom's advancements in art, architecture, technology, and governance are a testament to the ingenuity and sophistication of its people. These secrets are a source of pride, a reflection of the kingdom's excellence that sets it apart from others. Yet, like the Oba and his servants, Benin's stories and secrets come with a cost. Keeping its traditions alive requires sacrifice, discipline, and a willingness to endure hardship. And as the kingdom interacts with the outside world, it faces the challenge of preserving its cultural integrity in the face of external pressures. Despite these challenges, Benin's commitment to secrecy is unwavering. It understands the value of its stories, its myths, its traditions, and its achievements. It recognizes that these secrets are not just part of its past, but an essential part of its identity, shaping who it is, where it has come from, and where it is going. For Benin, keeping secrets is not just about protecting the past, it's about safeguarding the future, ensuring that its legacy lives on for generations to come. And so our journey through the palace continues, each room, each courtyard, each ritual deepening our understanding of Benin's rich tapestry of culture, tradition, and power. We have glimpsed the lives of the Oba servants, bearing witness to their dedication, their sacrifices, and their unwavering commitment to their king and their kingdom. But now it's time to move forward, to explore further corners of this magnificent palace and uncover more of the secrets that have made Benin one of the most fascinating empires in African history. Join me as we continue our journey through the heart of Benin, where every shadow holds a story and every ritual reveals a deeper truth about this extraordinary civilization. Curfew had fallen over the Benin kingdom like a heavy cloth, muffling the city's vibrant pulse. Now the streets, once teeming with traders and artisans, lay hushed and empty, surrendering to the king's edict. Only the faithful few, the palace servants, remained awake, their day just beginning as the sun dipped below the horizon. Within the vast expanse of the Palace of Benin, discipline was not an abstract rule etched on tablets or inscribed on scrolls. No, it was as visible and sharp as the stroke of a whip, and as unforgettable as the sting of a public shaming. Palace life was a tightrope walk between unflinching obedience and the constant threat of punishment. For the servants, life in the shadow of the Oba was a precarious dance. Their every move, word, and deed was scrutinized, judged, and often punished. One wrong step, a misplaced dish, a ritual performed with a tremor, a careless word spoken out of turn. Any one of these could invite reprimand, swift and unforgiving. The palace, while magnificent, was a cage of its own making, trapping its inhabitants in a web of rigid rules. Some infractions brought minor punishments, extra duties, sleepless nights of service, or being barred from leaving the compound for weeks at a stretch. Others, more grievous, drew harsher penalties. Public scoldings before fellow servants, whippings that left their marks on skin, or the ultimate disgrace, exile from the palace altogether. To be cast out was not freedom, it was banishment, a brand of shame that clung tighter than any garment. The disgraced servant bore the whispers in the market, the sidelong glances, the shunning of their own kin, forever marked as one who failed to live up to the Oba's trust. Yet, as with all things whispered, the true measure of punishments meted out in the palace was often lost in the telling. Stories filtered through the grapevine, taking on a life of their own. Some spoke of punishments so severe they bordered on the fantastical. It was said that those who committed the most grievous sins were taken away in the dead of night, never to be seen again. These tales, whether truth or rumor, wove a palpable fear into the fabric of palace life. For fear, like a vine, knows no bounds. It grows with every retelling, taking root in the fertile ground of uncertainty. And so the servants of the Orba, living under the twin spectres of punishment and fear, became masters of silence. Within the palace walls, sound was a currency too precious to squander. Words were weighed, actions measured, all to avoid drawing unwanted attention, to avoid becoming the next hushed whisper in the corridors. They learned to read the subtlest shifts in a noble's demeanor, to anticipate the silent language of raised eyebrows or tightened lips. They memorized rituals, prayers, and ceremonies until their bodies moved through them like automata, devoid of thought or error. They silenced their own laughter, their own anger, their own grief, leaving only quiet, watchful obedience in its wake. But why was this silence so absolute? Why did the servants of the Orba, custodians of his every need, the very gears that turned the wheels of his court, exist in such hushed penury? The answer lay not only in the nature of their service, but in the very soul of the Benin kingdom. Silence wasn't merely a means to avoid punishment. It was a tool to preserve the sanctity of the kingdom. In a time when news traveled on the wings of gossip and the clatter of trade caravans, secrecy was paramount. Court intrigues, ritual preparations, even military strategies, all were veiled in layers of secrecy. A misplaced word could unravel plots, endanger lives, disrupt the delicate balance of power. The servants, privy to the inner workings of the palace, were expected to guard its secrets fiercely. Their silence became a shield, protecting the kingdom from external threats as surely as the walls of the royal palace. As the night deepened, the palace came alive in its own unique way. Servants moved like phantoms through moonlit corridors, their footsteps echoing the heartbeat of the kingdom. There were the weavers, their nimble fingers dancing over looms, crafting not just cloth, but tapestries of secrecy. The blacksmiths, their hammers ringing out rhythms of silence, forging not just weapons, but tools of discretion. Even the hunters, their bows taut with anticipation, honed their skills, ensuring the OBA's table would remain bountiful. But perhaps the most critical figures were the storytellers, their voices hushed, yet their words loaded with purpose. They wove tales of valor, of ancient traditions, of the Obas lineage, ensuring that the kingdom's past, its culture, its very identity was passed down through generations. The price of this elaborate dance of silence, however, was steep. Servants often sacrificed their own stories in the process, burying their joys, their sorrows, their hopes and dreams under layers of deference and decorum. They became hollow vessels, their individuality eclipsed by the demands of the palace. Within the grand machinery of the kingdom, they were mere cogs, their worth measured only in their obedience and silence. Still, some found solace in numbers. In the vastness of the palace, they were nameless, faceless, easily replaced. But together they formed a silent chorus, bound by shared hardships, secret glances, and a common understanding of their place. In the grand hierarchy, they were nothing, but together they were everything. They were the backbone of the kingdom, holding it upright with their silent, unseen labor. However, this wasn't a tale of unmitigated gloom, for in silence there is strength, in restraint, power. The palace servants, though shackled by rules, developed a kind of resilience born of necessity. They endured not just because they feared the consequences of disobedience, but because they understood the importance of their role. Each sunrise, they awoke not just to the demands of the Orba, but to the chance to play their part in the continuity of the kingdom. They performed their rituals, tended to the royal needs, and guarded its secrets not out of blind obedience, but out of a sense of belonging, of shared purpose. They were the silent architects of the Benin kingdom, shaping its destiny one hushed step, one whispered word, one carefully executed task at a time. Within the grand chambers of the palace, amidst the echoes of rituals and the rustle of silk, there existed a world unseen, unheard, yet vital to the kingdom's existence. It was a world where silence wasn't just golden, it was the very lifeblood of the kingdom. Here, in the heart of Benin, silence wasn't the absence of sound, but the presence of duty, of loyalty, of an unbroken chain of service reaching back to the ancient past. Here, in the hushed hours of the night, the palace servants wove their silent magic, ensuring the kingdom stood strong, its secrets safe, its traditions unbroken. As the first rays of dawn touched the palace walls, they slipped back into the shadows, leaving behind a kingdom poised and ready to greet the day. They were the silent heroes of Benin, their names lost to history, their deeds echoing in the corridors of time. So let us raise a glass to them, the unsung, the unheard, the palace servants of Benin, whose lives were a testament to the power of silence. Oba Uer, the Great, one of the greatest kings in the history of Africa. He was an absolute ruler who was known for his bravery and exploits. Before history remembered him as Uer the Great, he was simply a man in exile. His birth name was Prince Ogun, and he was not the favored heir. Instead, he lived in the long shadow of other princes, kept at arm's length from the throne, a restless figure searching for his own destiny. This is the story of how he went from a banished prince to becoming the great warrior king, Uer the Great. But before we begin this tale, I ask you to do 3 things. Click the like button, subscribe so that you will be the first to know when we upload a new video. And finally, sit back, relax, and immerse yourself in this captivating story. Now let's go back to the story. Exile in Benin was not idleness. It was a crucible. In the forests and villages beyond the capital, Ogun wandered, learning survival the hard way. He listened to healers, studied charms, and sought wisdom from wandering priests who spoke in riddles and dreams. He became a man of 2 halves. On one side, a warrior hardened by hardship and close calls, always ready to strike back. On the other, a seeker. He walked with mystics and learned men, poring over ancient texts and listening to whispers of forgotten magic. This double life, the warrior and the student, would later make him a formidable leader. Some say he mastered the art of disguise and invisibility, becoming a master of espionage and sabotage. Legends say he discovered a charm that made him invisible to his enemies. Others say he befriended mystical beings in the wilds, who whispered secrets of power into his ears. Whether myth or memory, exile shaped Ogun into something more than a prince. It made him dangerous, unpredictable, and patient. Like a coiled snake, he waited for the right moment to strike. He knew the forest intimately, its hiding places and secret paths. He could track a deer across the plains or climb a tree like a monkey. And while the nobles in Benin plotted and feasted, he honed his skills. With each passing year, Ogun grew more adept at survival, strategy, and subterfuge. He trained boys who admired him into a personal army, loyal and fierce. Years rolled by, turning the exiled prince into a man of action and introspection. When the time came, the city of Benin was not ruled by stability. Factional struggles, weak leadership, and threats from outside left the throne vulnerable. As the fires of discontent grew, Ogun felt their heat in the forests. He knew it was time to return, but not as the quiet prince in exile. He came back to Benin as a roaring lion. When news reached the kingdom of the approach of the great war leader, terror gripped Benin. People cowered in their homes as the sound of drums reverberated, signaling the coming storm. For many, it was a sound of fear, but for some, it was a call to arms. Ogon, now named Uer, wasn't just returning as a prince. He was back to claim the throne. Benin, with its high walls and sprawling palaces, was about to witness the rise of a warrior king, a ruler who would carve his name in history, not just as a conqueror, but as a visionary. Uer's return was both a spectacle and a threat. It was a challenge to the established order, a disruption that shook the foundations of Benin. Those who had shunned him now saw him in a new light, a leader forged in the fires of adversity, tempered by years of struggle and self-discovery. His rise was not gentle. Oba Uer seized power with cunning, strength, and ruthlessness. He did not simply inherit the throne. He fought for it, maneuvered for it, and claimed it by force. His ascension was a testament to his resilience and strategic brilliance. Once seated upon the leopard skin stool, he never looked back. His reign marked a turning point in the history of Benin. Under his leadership, Benin evolved from a collection of warring states into a cohesive empire, a feat made more remarkable by the challenges he faced and overcame. Uer didn't just dream of expansion, he orchestrated it. His military campaigns were not acts of mindless aggression, but calculated moves to unite disparate groups under the banner of Benin. Each victory brought him closer to his goal of creating a unified and powerful empire. His conquest wasn't solely based on brute force. Uer understood the value of diplomacy and alliances. He formed strategic partnerships, forging a network of support that extended far beyond Benin's borders. These alliances served as cornerstones in his empire building, demonstrating that strength in numbers was not just a proverb, but a strategy for success. The tale of Uer is not just about battles and conquests. It's about the systemic changes he introduced, laying the groundwork for a centralized state. He reformed the structure of power, introducing a system that would influence the political landscape of Benin for generations. These reforms didn't quell dissent, but they provided a framework for governance that outlived his reign. But it wasn't just about control. Uer was a visionary. He saw Benin at a crossroads, and he steered it towards progress. Under his guidance, Benin wasn't just a seat of power, it became a hub of trade and culture. The influx of wealth transformed the city, making it a target of envy rather than a relic of the past. The zenith of Uer's reign was marked by the creation of the Empire of Benin. This wasn't a moment of spontaneous combustion, but the culmination of years of strategic planning and execution. The empire stood as a testament to his abilities, a legacy that would echo through the annals of history. However, even amidst the triumphs, there were seeds of discord sown. Cracks appeared in the facade of unity, and murmurs of discontent grew louder. The very alliances that had bolstered Uer's rise now seemed to be testing his rule. This wasn't an unanticipated turn of events. Uer, with his keen understanding of power dynamics, must have foreseen the shifting tides. Yet he continued to navigate the treacherous waters of statecraft, showing that his brilliance lay not just in conquest, but in anticipating and managing the complexities of power. The opposition to Uer wasn't just external, it often came from within the palace walls. Betrayals and power plays became part of the Game of Thrones, forcing Uer to be ever vigilant. Each challenge, however, seemed to sharpen his skills, making him a master strategist capable of outmaneuvering his rivals. The story of Uer's reign wasn't a fairy tale. It was a saga filled with twists and turns that would put any modern-day ruler to the test. In the end, Uwere's journey from a banished prince to a legendary king wasn't merely a tale of ambition and triumph. It was a study in resilience, adaptability, and the art of power. He left behind a legacy that echoed through generations, shaping the course of Benin's history and cementing his place as one of Africa's most iconic rulers. It's important to note that historical figures like Oba Uwere the Great are complex, multifaceted individuals. While we celebrate their achievements and contributions, it's also crucial to acknowledge the intricacies of their stories. Uwere's journey, marked by periods of exile and the challenges of maintaining power, reminds us that greatness often comes at a cost, and that those who reach the pinnacle of success are not immune to the complexities and hardships of life. Once the crown was his, Oba Uwere did not waste time. He set about reshaping Benin into something vast and ordered, a kingdom that could no longer be dismissed as just another city in the forests. He strengthened the palace, reorganized power, and reimagined what rulership meant. One of his first moves was to curb the power of rebellious chiefs. For generations, certain noble families had been strong enough to challenge the throne. Uwere broke that pattern. He tightened loyalty, created new titles loyal only to him, and placed trusted men, and sometimes his own blood, in positions of influence. From then on, the palace was not just a building. It became the heart of power, pulsing outward through the veins of the kingdom. The next move was to build walls, not just symbolic ones, but real ones. Under his rule, the famous earthworks of Benin expanded. Vast ramparts of mud and ditch that encircled towns and villages. These walls were not simply defenses. They were statements. They declared to the world that Benin was organized, disciplined, and formidable. But Uwere didn't stop there. He turned outward too, launching campaigns that extended Benin's reach far beyond its old boundaries. Villages and towns, once independent, found themselves pulled into the orbit of Benin's authority. Tribute flowed inward. Ivory, pepper, slaves, and wealth. The Oba's court grew rich, and with wealth came new art, new rituals, and new confidence. We told you about Uwere's conquests, but let's pause here for a moment. Let's enjoy the spoils of war brought back to Benin. Imagine the vibrant colors of captured banners rippling in the wind, each fold a story of battles won. Scattered around them are spoils of war, not just for the sake of conquest, but each item telling a tale of the Oba's victories. There's jewelry shimmering with the promise of distant lands, weapons hinting at the strength of those subdued, and chests overflowing with treasures that signify power and prestige. These riches weren't just about material wealth or flexing power. They were a visual narrative of Uwere's reign, a silent testament to his might. Each artifact spoke of the Oba's prowess, reminding all who saw it of his triumphs and the might of Benin. It was a subtle way of ruling, not just through force, but through the very symbols of victory, weaving a tapestry of awe and respect throughout the empire. Yet, despite these expansions, despite being known as the conqueror, Oba Uwere was not solely remembered for war. In fact, his deeds took an unexpected turn after a devastating fire swept through Benin city. When the flames died down, the city lay in ruins, its people demoralized. But instead of despair, Uwere saw opportunity. He gathered his subjects, calmed their fears, and began a massive reconstruction project. Benin rose from the ashes, not as a haphazard collection of huts, but as a marvel of urban planning. The heart of the city was redesigned, featuring wide, straight streets that intersected at right angles. Great courtyards were created, each with multiple entrances, signifying openness and access for all. And at the center of it all, a magnificent palace complex, the largest in Africa, stood as a beacon of authority and beauty. This transformation wasn't just about rebuilding. It was about reimagining what their city, their identity, their empire could be. So let's take a moment to explore this remarkable feat. Imagine walking through the bustling markets of Benin City, the air filled with the aroma of spices and the murmur of many languages. You come across a large, open space, a plaza bustling with activity. Merchants display their wares, artisans showcase their crafts, and people from various ethnic groups gather, creating a vibrant tapestry of humanity. As you move through the city, you notice that the houses, instead of being randomly scattered, are arranged in a grid pattern, each with its front wall facing the street. This uniformity speaks of order and discipline, reflecting the centralized authority of the OBA. The streets, wide enough to accommodate 2 elephants abreast, are lined with rows of houses, each representing a specific occupation or social class, creating a sense of community within the city. Then, at the center of it all, rises the palace, not just a building, but a complex of courtyards, each separated by high walls and connected by a series of gateways. The main gate is a masterpiece of design, adorned with intricate carvings depicting scenes from the creation myth and the Oba's genealogy. Once inside, you find yourself in a courtyard surrounded by high walls. The royal residences nestled behind them, each section demarcated by its own gate and guarded by bronze warriors, their fierce faces frozen in a silent scream. The palace isn't just a symbol of authority, it's a microcosm of the empire itself, a blend of cultures and a testament to the Oba's vision of a centralized, ordered state. But that's not all. Beyond the palace walls, you see evidence of everyday life. There are shrines dedicated to local deities, marketplaces overflowing with goods, and craftsmen working in their shops, the sounds of their hammers and chisels echoing through the streets. It's a city where religion, trade, and artistry thrive, all under the watchful gaze of the Oba. And that brings us back to Uwa, the man who orchestrated this transformation. He's not just the conqueror, but the visionary, the one who rebuilt after the fire and instilled a sense of unity and order in Benin. He is Uwer, the man who brought harmony after destruction. Through these reforms and conquests, Oba Uwer transformed Benin from a kingdom of uncertainty into a true empire. He shifted power dynamics, expanded territories, and reshaped the urban landscape. His legacy wasn't just about brute force, but about the vision of a centralized, structured state, a testament to which stands the magnificent ruins of Benin City today. He is Uwer, the conqueror. He is Uwer, the rebuilder. And together, these names form the stuff of legends. When Uwer ascended the throne of Benin, the kingdom was on the brink of chaos. Rebellious chiefs challenged authority. The borders were ill-defined, and the people lacked a strong central leader. However, when he stepped down, his realm was vastly different. Benin had evolved into a powerful empire with well-defined boundaries, a tribute system that brought in wealth and resources, and most importantly, a unified populace under a strong centralized government. His impact went beyond just politics. Uwer was instrumental in expanding Benin's territory, incorporating numerous villages and towns into its fold and securing its position as a dominant power in the region. This expansion not only increased the kingdom's size, but also diversified its population, creating a melting pot of cultures within the empire. However, his most enduring legacy was his urban planning and architectural innovations. The transformation of Benin City from a collection of scattered settlements to a planned metropolis with wide streets, distinct neighborhoods, and the iconic Royal Palace complex was unprecedented in the region. This systematic approach to urban development not only showcased Benin's wealth and power, but also served as a tool for social control and cultural integration. Uer's story is a potent mix of politics, conquest, and urban planning. He wasn't just a warrior king or a builder, but a combination of both. Someone who understood the strategic value of both military strength and urban sophistication. His reign marked a turning point in the history of Benin, propelling it from a mid-sized kingdom to a sprawling empire that would serve as a precursor to the modern-day Edo state. His efforts laid the groundwork for a cultural fusion that became a hallmark of Benin, where various ethnic groups coexisted, traded, and shared customs, creating a vibrant mosaic of African culture. As we delve deeper into the annals of history, stories like Uer's remind us of the complexity of our past and the richness of African heritage. History tells us of a warrior, a reformer, and a builder, but the people of Benin remembered Oba Uer in ways that went beyond bricks and battles. They told stories that shimmered at the edge of the real, whispering that his power was not only of this world, but touched by the unseen. Now, this is a story from somewhere else. A long time ago, in a faraway place where the jungle meets the sky, there lived a mighty king named Oba. They called him the Great. But before he became great, he was a young prince named Owen. Now, Prince Owen was no ordinary boy. As he grew, so did tales of his courage and smarts. One day, his father, the Oba, fell seriously ill. The royal healers did their best, but nothing worked. "My son," the Oba said to Prince Hen, "there's a secret herb I need to get better. It's called idiot. Only the daughter of the forest spirit can pick it, but she lives deep in the dangerous forest of Yui. No one has ever come back from there alive. You must go, Prince Hen. Our kingdom needs you." Prince Hen knew this was no easy task, but his heart was brave. He grabbed his bow and quiver and set off into the jungle. Days turned into nights. Wild animals prowled around him, and creepy crawlies bit at him, but he kept going. Finally, he saw a small hut in the distance. Smoke curled from its roof. Hope filled him. Maybe someone lived there who could help. As he got closer, he heard a voice. "Who's there?" Prince Hen called out. "It's just me. Please, I'm lost and I need help." Out came a beautiful woman. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "This is a dangerous place." Prince Hen explained his quest for the special herb. "I'll help you get it," the woman said, "but in return, you must promise to do whatever I ask." He agreed without a second thought. She led him deeper into the forest till they reached a clearing. There, in the center, grew the plant he needed. Relief washed over him. Just as he reached out to grab it, the woman stopped him. "Now," she said, "it's time you kept your promise." She wanted him to marry her and live in the forest forever. Prince Hen refused. He had come for his father, and that's what he'd do. He turned and ran. The woman screamed, "You'll regret this." She vanished into the trees, and moments later, a pack of wild dogs appeared, biting at his heels. Prince Hen shot one, then another, but there were too many, and soon they knocked him out. When he woke up, he was tied to a tree. The woman loomed over him. "You won't leave this forest alive," she hissed. Then something amazing happened. With a flick of his tail, a huge leopard jumped down from a tree and licked Prince Hen's face. Startled, the woman stepped back. "What?" she cried. "How can he turn into a leopard?" Then she noticed a pendant around Prince Hen's neck. "That charm is powerful," she whispered. Just then, the leopard snarled and charged at her. The woman screamed and fled. As she ran, the leopard changed direction and disappeared into the bushes. Prince Hen was free. He found the herb and raced home. He used it to heal his father, and everyone rejoiced. Prince Hen became known as Ober the Great because of his bravery and smarts. His pendant was considered a magical charm, which helped him become even stronger. However, nobody knew the truth about the pendant until one day when Yue shared a secret with his close friend Ias. "I want you to know something," Ober said. "When I was young, I received a gift from my mother. It was this pendant. I wore it during my adventures. But after each journey, I took it off and left it with my wife, Aviatlele. Why? Because it held great power. I didn't want to tempt fate by keeping it on." Iaseli was deeply moved. "Oba," he asked, "can I touch it?" Yor hesitated. "Well, but it's just a pendant," he said. "Just a pendant," Iosiri repeated slowly. Then suddenly he screamed, "Oba, it's alive!" Oba felt a chill. His pendant was indeed magic. It wasn't just a charm, it was a living spirit. "We must tell Avella," he said. When Avella heard the truth, she became very worried. "Oh, my husband," she cried. "We never knew. What if it brings harm to our home?" Oba put his mind to it. "No, I've worn it many times and nothing bad has happened. But you're right, it's too dangerous. I'll take it to the village elders and find a way to protect it." However, on the way to the village, he met Iaseli, who told him some shocking news. "Oba," he gasped, "our enemies are coming. They're planning to attack and destroy our kingdom." Oba felt the weight of his responsibilities. How could he keep his people safe? Then he had an idea. He raced to the palace, grabbed his pendant, and called out to the spirit inside, "Help me protect my people. Grant me powers beyond my own." The pendant glowed brightly, and Oba felt a surge of energy. He was ready. He led his warriors into battle, using his new powers to defeat their enemies. From that day on, he was known as Oba the Great. After the war, Oba continued to use his magic to help his people. He healed the sick, protected the weak, and made sure everyone was happy. The pendant became a symbol of hope and strength for the entire kingdom. Oba the Great ruled wisely and fairly, always remembering to respect the powers that lay dormant within him. Many years passed, and Oba legend grew. People told stories of his bravery, his wisdom, and his connection to the spiritual world. And so it was that Oba the Great became a hero of myth and magic, a shining example of what it meant to be a true leader. And thus we move on. So we find ourselves in the heart of the Edo rainforest, surrounded by towering trees that seem to touch the sky. Beneath this emerald canopy, we stumble upon an ancient altar overgrown with vines and moss. Etched into its surface is a narrative that stirs the soul, detailing the escapades of the legendary Oba the Great. As we delve deeper into the dense foliage, we encounter a weathered bronze plaque depicting the Oba's visage. Intricate patterns adorn its surface, whispering tales of a bygone era. Hidden amidst the lush vegetation, we discover a crumbling palace wall, its broken bricks bearing silent witness to the grandeur of Yue's reign. As twilight descends, casting long shadows across the forest floor, we gather around a crackling campfire. Here, under the star-studded sky, an elder of the Benin people regales us with mystical legends of Oba his voice echoing with reverence and awe. Each flickering ember seems to dance to the rhythm of his words, weaving a tapestry of magic and history. And so our journey through the emerald embrace of the Edo rainforest continues, guided by the enigmatic allure of Oba legacy. Every rustling leaf and babbling brook becomes a storyteller. Every ancient artifact a portal to the past. And as we immerse ourselves in this enchanted realm, we are forever changed by the mystical wonders that unfold before our eyes. And now we come to the end of our journey, to a clearing bathed in the ethereal glow of dawn. Before us stands an imposing bronze plaque, its surface a masterpiece of intricate detail, depicting the OBA's face framed by coral beads. As the sun ascends, painting the sky with hues of gold and crimson, we stand mesmerized by the timeless legacy of Oba Yu, a ruler whose spirit continues to resonate through the ages. And as we bid farewell to this enchanting realm, we carry with us the echoes of the mystical legends that have breathed life into the emerald embrace of the Edo rainforest. In the heart of Benin, beneath the roofs of workshops tucked near the palace walls, fire met earth and metal sang. Here the bronzes of Benin were born. These were not mere ornaments. They were vessels of memory, crafted by hands that believed their work held the weight of ancestors and kings. Each piece was a conversation between the artisan and the spirit world, a collaboration between human skill and divine inspiration. It was a legacy older than any king, deeper than any trade. But how did these bronzes come to be? Who were the hands behind these masterpieces? And what tales do the bronzes themselves tell? This is the story of the Benin Bronzes, Segment 3, Part 1, The Birth of a Legacy. The artisans of the guild, known as Igan Ironwan, worked in secrecy and devotion. They lived and breathed bronze, and their loyalty to the Oba, the king, was as strong as the metal they molded. Their work was not just a profession, it was a calling, a duty passed down through generations. When a young boy showed aptitude for the craft, he would leave his family home and go to live with a master. For years, he would sweep the floors of the workshop, mix clay, and watch the master's every move. It was a silent education, one that demanded patience and absolute concentration. There was no room for distraction. As the apprentice grew, so did his understanding. He absorbed the secrets of the trade, the feel of the metal, the language of the flame. When he was deemed ready, he, too, could begin to coax life out of molten bronze, to breathe soul into a lifeless mold. And the process was pure magic. First, they would sculpt in beeswax, carving details as delicate as the folds of coral beads or the ridges of a leopard's whiskers. Then a layer of clay would be painstakingly applied, hardening in the fire. When it was ready, the wax would melt away, leaving an empty shell. Into this space, bronze was poured, glowing red like the sun at dusk. Out of this liquid metal rose a form both powerful and fragile, a testament to the skill of the artisan. The entire process was a dance, a ballet of fire and metal, of precision and intuition. It was a dialogue between the craftsman and the bronze, between man and the spirits that guided his hand. Each step was laden with meaning, each detail a prayer to the gods of metal and fire. But it wasn't just about the technical mastery. It was also about the stories the bronzes told. They were not just pieces of art. They were a kingdom's memory bank, its visual history. They captured moments in time, freezing figures in mid-action, preserving faces that might otherwise have been lost to time. For instance, the ubiquitous leopards. Why did they appear so frequently in Benin art? Leopards were more than just animals. They were symbols of power, strength, and nobility. The king, the Oba, was believed to be the reincarnation of a leopard, and the royal court was adorned with leopard imagery as a way of paying homage to their ruler. Even the kingdom's name, Benin, is thought to be derived from the Edo word for leopard. Then there were the brass plaques that adorned the palace walls. These were more than just decorative. They were a form of record-keeping. a visual diary of the kingdom's history. Each plaque depicted an event, a ritual, or a ruler, helping to preserve the memory of the kingdom's past. There were plaques showing the OBA receiving tribute from conquered foes, others depicting royal processions winding through the streets of Benin City. Some showed everyday life in the kingdom, while others were deeply spiritual, illustrating rituals and ceremonies designed to keep the kingdom in balance. Consider a plaque depicting the famous Portuguese encounter with the Orba in 1486. Here, the Benin king sits enthroned, his gaze steady, his hands resting on the arms of his chair. Opposite him, the Portuguese traders stand awestruck, their hands raised in submission. Behind the Oba, attendants and courtiers watch intently, while in the background, the city of Benin stretches towards the horizon. This plaque isn't just a historical record, it's a conversation between cultures, a testament to the Benin kingdom's power and sophistication. It's a reminder of the Benin people's mastery of not just bronze, but diplomacy and statecraft. In the skilled hands of the Benin artisans, bronze became more than just metal. It became a vessel for stories, a conduit for history. With each piece, they wove a tapestry of images and symbols that spoke to the heart of their culture. For example, coral necklaces were a symbol of rank and power. The type and size of coral worn by a courtier or warrior indicated their status in society. These necklaces weren't just fashionable accessories. They were a way of communicating information quickly and efficiently. Leopards were another common motif, representing royal power and the spiritual connection between the king and the kingdom. Warriors often carried leopard skins as a trophy of their victories, while the Oba's court was adorned with leopard imagery. In Benin art, the leopard is more than just a wildcat. It's a symbol of strength, courage, and the divine right to rule. Other symbols were more obscure, known only to initiates or those who had undergone special training. These secret symbols could convey complex ideas or serve as passwords or identification markers. They were a way of binding the community together through shared knowledge and experience. To truly appreciate the Benin bronzes, we must look beyond their aesthetic appeal. They are not just beautiful works of art, they are a window into a rich and complex world. They are a legacy of a people who saw beauty in the everyday, who found divinity in nature, and who used their skills to preserve their history and traditions. They are a reminder that every culture has its own logic, its own beauty, and its own story to tell, and it's our duty to listen. So the next time you see a Benin bronze, take a moment to appreciate the skill of the artisan, the depth of the culture, and the power of the symbols. Let them transport you to another time and place, and let them tell you their story. Walking through those halls was like stepping into a dream, a panorama of the kingdom's past unfurling before your eyes. Each bronze spoke, not with words, but with the eloquence of form and texture. Some told of great hunts, the thrill of the chase frozen in bronze, the muscles of the jaguar taut with the effort of the leap, the tension of the net about to ensnare its prey. Others depicted courtly dances, the swirling robes of the dancers suggesting motion even in their stillness. Every mask, every plaque, every figurine was a testament to the skill of the Benin bronzes. They weren't just decorations, they were the very essence of the kingdom's history, its rituals, its beliefs, and its values. They were a silent symphony of memory, a grand orchestra of metal. And at the heart of this symphony was the figure of the Oba, the king. He was the embodiment of the kingdom, its soul and its strength. His image, larger than life, dominated the bronze landscape, reminding all who saw it of his supreme authority and spiritual connection to his people. One particular plaque caught my eye, a depiction of the Orba in the center of a bustling market, surrounded by his courtiers and attendants. But it wasn't just the king that fascinated me. It was the market itself, the teeming crowds, the vibrant colors, the sense of life and movement that seemed to pulse from the bronze. It was as if I had stumbled upon a time capsule, a snapshot of daily life in ancient Benin. I could almost hear the chatter of the crowd, the haggling of merchants, the laughter of children playing at their feet. Another fascinating aspect of the Benin bronzes was their use of scale. The figures were not always depicted in proportion to each other. The most important figures, such as the Orba, were made larger, emphasizing their importance and power. This was especially evident in the royal portraits. The Orba was shown in profile, his features sharp and angular, his gaze direct and unwavering. His headdress and jewelry were meticulously detailed, underscoring his status and wealth. Even the commoners were depicted with dignity and respect, their bodies slender, their faces serene, their expressions conveying a sense of peace and harmony with their surroundings. But it wasn't just the size of the figures that made the Benin bronzes so compelling. It was also the way they were arranged. The placement of figures in relation to each other conveyed a sense of hierarchy and order, reflecting the rigid social structure of Benin society. For instance, in scenes depicting the Orba in the market, he was shown at the center, surrounded by his court and attendants. This emphasized his centrality to the kingdom, his role as the unifying force that held everything together. The use of negative space was also striking. The areas between the figures were not empty, but rather filled with intricate patterns and designs that added depth and texture to the composition. These patterns often had symbolic meaning, representing the natural world or the spiritual realm. They wove a rich tapestry of imagery that invited the viewer to explore and interpret for themselves. But perhaps the most remarkable thing about the Benin bronzes was the sheer volume of work that had survived the test of time. The palace walls were literally covered with plaques, each one a masterpiece in its own right. This was not just a display of wealth or power, it was a celebration of life, a paean to the joys and sorrows, triumphs and tragedies of the human condition. As I stood there, dwarfed by the grandeur of the bronze collection, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder. How had these artisans managed to capture the essence of their subjects with such accuracy and grace? How had they created a visual language that was so powerful, so evocative, so moving? I realized that these were not just sculptures, they were storytellers. They were keepers of the kingdom's memory, chroniclers of its history, weavers of its culture. Each bronze was a testament to the human spirit, its capacity for greatness, its resilience, its creativity, its ability to endure. As I continued my journey through the palace, I knew that I was walking in the footsteps of giants. I was surrounded by the legacies of a people whose contributions to art, culture, and society had been immeasurable. I was humbled by their achievements, inspired by their vision, and grateful for their enduring legacy. So when you visit Benin, when you stand before the majestic palace, when you gaze upon the magnificent bronzes, remember that you are not just looking at art. You are witnessing a civilization, exploring a culture, experiencing a history that has shaped our world in profound ways. You are discovering the magic of the Benin Kingdom. In 1897, the Kingdom of Benin faced a storm unlike any other. It was not the kind that swept across the plains, bending grasses and fruit trees before the onslaught of rain. No, this storm arrived with drums of war, with chants of vengeance and the glint of cutlasses under a blazing sun. It was a storm brought by men who called themselves the Expedition, whose flag bore the words God, queen, and country, and who marched on the city under the banner of punishment. When the royal palace stood defiant in its grandeur, they set fire to it, and as the flames climbed towards the heavens, they entered the kingdom's greatest treasure house and stole its greatest treasures. We'll get back to the story in a moment, but first, here's a quick message from our sponsor, Brilliant. Whether you're into coding, math, science, or just want to level up your problem-solving skills, Brilliant has the perfect interactive course for you. With thousands of lessons covering topics from foundational and advanced math to AI, data science, and more, Brilliant makes learning really fun and engaging. Their courses are designed around active learning, which means you learn best by doing. So instead of just watching lectures, you'll be solving problems from the very start. You can work through the basics of logic or dive straight into AI fundamentals. Brilliant offers something for everyone. Learning doesn't have to be overwhelming. Thanks to Brilliant for supporting this video. Now back to the story. The fire burned not only wood and thatch, but also dignity. Sacred ivories, coral regalia, and carved tusks meant to adorn the Orba, the king, were smashed or scattered. Any semblance of resistance was crushed. The Orba was exiled, his court broken and his city silenced. His name was Ovanramwan Nagbaisi, the Orba of Benin. When he fled the city, he took his royal staff with him. It was made of ivory and covered with brass, representing the unity of the people and the kingship of Benin. This was his connection to his ancestors and to the people. But when he left, he knew he might never return. He walked among his people who had been forced out of their homes and herded together on a sports field. He watched as the soldiers searched their huts, looted their belongings, and set fire to their city. They had said it would be a swift and merciful attack. But the Oba saw the hate in their eyes and the glint of greed in their hands. He knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Where once bronzes gleamed in the torchlight, telling stories of great hunts and ancestral glory, now there remained only ash and absence. For centuries, the people of Benin had honored their ancestors with these sculptures, casting each one with care and precision. Now the walls were bare, and the spirits must have been cold. Let's pause here for a moment. Listen to the wind whispering through the tall grasses. The fire crackles softly, and we rest beneath the stars. Feel the warmth of the fire on your skin, the comforting crackle beside you. Let the flickering flames dance before your eyes. Rest for a moment. Breathe deeply. Let the firelight paint shadows on your face. It was not just a massacre, it was a calculated erasure, and at the heart of it, the theft of a kingdom's soul. In those stolen moments, the soldiers moved like ghosts, snatching away fragments of a culture and history. They pried plaques off beams, tore masks from shrines, filled crates with what they called loot, silencing the voices that had echoed for generations. On January 5, 1897, the British military party, led by Captain R.A.H. Butler, entered the Benin city. They were not welcomed. The OBA refused to submit to the demands of the British, such as the return of the brass that the British traders had stolen from the kingdom years before. On the contrary, the OBA assembled his army to defend the kingdom. As a result, the British began firing on the city, killing several people. Then they set fire to the entire city and looted it. While the soldiers pillaged the city, Butler stayed in the palace and kept guard over the treasure trove. By the time the expedition left Benin City, they had amassed a huge collection of Benin bronzes, which were then sent to Lagos and shipped to Europe. Imagine the sight that greeted them on that fateful day. Crates upon crates filled with the riches of an ancient kingdom, each piece a testament to the skill and artistry of the Benin people. Yet they saw not treasures of another culture, but spoils of war. They did not see the echoes of generations past, the whispers of history in metal. No, they saw only loot, things to be sold, traded, auctioned off for personal gain. And so the bronzes left Benin, leaving behind the empty palace walls and the silent people. On December 2nd, 1897, the first shipment of Benin bronzes arrived in London. They were taken to the British Museum, where some still remain today. Others found their way into private collections, into the hands of wealthy individuals who appreciated the craftsmanship, but not the sorrow they represented. Still, others ended up in auction houses, sold to the highest bidder without a thought to the story they were a part of. All across Europe, in museums and private collections, the bronzes found new homes, or rather, new prisons, behind glass cases lit perfectly to show off their intricate details. They were admired, studied, coveted, but they could not speak their full language. They could not tell their stories. They were not merely silent, they were imprisoned. They were placed in sterile white rooms with no context, no connection to their past. How could anyone truly appreciate the artistry when they didn't know the soul it had sprung from? Each mask, each plaque, sat like a prisoner behind glass, admiring but misunderstood. Here's a rare photograph of the looting. Soldiers carrying away treasures from the palace of the Oba. The image speaks volumes of the invasion, the destruction and the theft that occurred during that time. But let's focus on the crates. Look closely at the soldiers' rough hands gripping the edges, the ropes digging into their palms. These crates were not just loaded with metal, they were filled with stories, with history, with the essence of a civilization. And the soldiers, caught in the act of pillage, become both the executioners and the exhibits. Their actions forever frozen in time, a stark reminder of the brutality of colonization. But their silence was not total. For every story stolen, 1,000 more grew in its place, passed down through generations of hushed voices and shared glances. The spirit of Benin lives on in its people, in their resilience, their creativity, their unbroken bond to their heritage. Despite the theft, the kingdom's soul remains unbroken. And so we come to the end of our story for today. But know this, the tale does not end here. It continues in the hearts of the people of Benin, in their art, their music, their very being. The stolen bronzes may adorn museum walls, but the spirit of Benin lives on, defying erasure, refusing to be silenced. As we fade to black, let the silence of the night envelop you. It is a silence different from that forced upon Benin, a silence that invites reflection, that whispers stories of resilience and survival. Remember the bronzes, not just as artifacts, but as echoes of a vibrant culture, a people, a history that refuses to be silenced. Okay, welcome to Crash Course Art History. I'm your host. Last time we talked about how many objects from Africa ended up in European and American museums because of the Atlantic slave trade. And today we're going to talk about how the descendants of the people whose ancestors made those sculptures are getting them back home. To get into this, let's look at one of the most famous examples, the Benin bronzes. These sculptures were made by the Edo people in what is now Nigeria between the 13th and 17th centuries. They were made of a special alloy of copper, lead, and sometimes other metals. So they're actually technically called the Benin bronzes, even though they're mostly made out of copper. The sculptures often depict royal figures, historical events, or just abstract ideas like power and wealth. And they have incredible detail and are really beautiful works of art. Now, we know they came from Benin because in 1897, British soldiers looted the Kingdom of Benin after attacking it. When they invaded, they destroyed a lot of the city and took many of these amazing sculptures to Europe and America, where they ended up in museums. In 2019, there were about 1,400 Benin bronzes in European museums, but it's hard to know exactly how many there are because new ones are found all the time. Some estimates say there could be as many as 5,000 pieces. So let us take a closer look at how they got to museums and then how they started coming home. To understand how the bronzes left Nigeria, we can start with this guy, Sir Ralph Shaw. He was a British soldier who participated in the attack on Benin City in 1897. When his group pillaged the city, he saw a bunch of these bronze sculptures and decided to make sure they didn't end up in someone else's hands. So he put them all in a warehouse in England. Eventually, he gave them to the British government and they put them in the British Museum. But it wasn't just Shaw who wanted the bronzes. Many other Europeans wanted them too. And over time, people around the world started to notice how beautiful they were. By the early 20th century, European museums were full of ancient African sculptures, and many people thought that meant these objects were finished being worked on. They believed that since they were old, they weren't going to be used anymore, so they might as well stay in museums where they could be appreciated by everyone. This idea of progress, which says that old things are outdated and useless, and that people stopped making them because they were primitive or backward, is why we call this period of collecting African art primitive collecting. It assumes that African cultures were stuck in the past and didn't change or grow over time. But of course, that isn't true. African cultures have always changed and grown. And many of these sculptures weren't relics from the past. They were recently made during the colonial period. Europeans just couldn't see that because of how they thought about African cultures. By the late 20th century, this kind of thinking was starting to change. More people were recognizing that African cultures were dynamic and that these sculptures were made within living cultures. As time went on, more and more people started to think that the bronzes shouldn't be in European museums. Instead, they should be in Nigeria, where they belong. But nobody really did anything about it until the 1970s, when people started talking about bringing them home. This process was helped along by the fact that in 1970, Nigeria got its independence from the British Empire. Now that they were their own country, Nigeria started demanding that European countries return the sculptures. But it wasn't easy. Even though these sculptures were taken from the Edo people about 100 years earlier. They had been sold and resold so many times, it was impossible to know who owned each sculpture. But that didn't stop people from asking for them back. The German director of the Berlin Museum asked the Nigerian government if they could pay for a replica of a sculpture so they could keep it in Germany. But a Nigerian official responded by saying, "There is nothing to swap. We don't need replicas." In the 1970s, people in Nigeria were sick of seeing copies of their sculptures and they wanted the originals. Over the next few decades, Nigerian leaders continued to ask for the bronzes to come home, but most museums refused. It seemed like it would be impossible to get them back. But in the 2000s, people started to have hope again. In 2003, Germany announced that it would return 26 sculptures to Nigeria. Then, in 2007, France said it would give Nigeria 5 of the bronzes. And in 2014, Great Britain said it would return 11 of them. It seemed like things were finally turning around. But while these returns were great, most of the bronzes were still sitting in museums in Europe and North America. So activists and academics in Nigeria started to push for more. They demanded that the sculptures be returned and that they be free of any strings attached. They also wanted the sculptures to stay in Nigeria and not be shipped off to another museum somewhere else. Then, in 2019, something amazing happened. The world's biggest collector of Benin bronzes, Germany, agreed to return 1,130 of them to Nigeria. This was a huge deal because it showed that museums could admit they were wrong and make things right. It was especially meaningful because Germany was the first country to take the bronzes from the Edo people. The German newspaper Der Spiegel wrote, "For the looting of Benin almost 100 years ago, Germany is now giving back part of the loot. It's not charity, but compensation." After this, a lot of museums started to return the sculptures. Between 2019 and 2023, French museums gave Nigeria 32 sculptures, including 2 that were made in the 16th century. And in 2022, the British Museum gave 7 bronzes to the people of Benin. However, it hasn't been all good news. Some people think returning the sculptures is a bad thing, because it takes away from our ability to enjoy them. But others point out that they were taken illegally and that enjoying them in this way is benefiting from injustice. In the end, it's up to each person to decide what they think. In 2023, Nigeria opened the Edo Museum of West African Art in Benin City. It has a lot of the sculptures that have been returned, as well as new sculptures made by artists today. In a way, it's like a new palace built to show the culture of the Edo people. So where do we go from here? Should we just leave the sculptures in Nigeria? Well, not so fast. In 2021, the Horniman Museum in London was supposed to return for bronzes to Nigeria. But the museum wouldn't let Nigeria take them unless they paid for shipping. Shipping costs, which were about $350, seems like a small amount considering the value of the sculptures. But the museum also asked for $1 million to fund a care plan for the sculptures. Nigeria refused, so the sculptures stayed in London. It's cases like this that make some people wonder if anything will ever get better. Despite the problems, though, in 2022, a Nigerian newspaper said that about 800 sculptures have been returned since Germany's announcement in 2019. That means that many museums and private collectors are giving back the sculptures, which is fantastic. It is said that when a king falls in love, he falls deeply. When the Obas of Benin decided to marry, they did so with an entire kingdom's devotion. Marriage in Benin was not just a union of 2 people. It was an alliance of 2 dynasties. And the preparation was nothing short of epic. In Benin, the king's wife was both a partner and a symbol. She gave him children, thus continuing the bloodline, and she represented the kingdom's prosperity and unity. To choose her, the OBA relied on a council of elders and, most importantly, his own heart. For while tradition held sway, love had its own language. Once chosen, the bride's family was notified through a delegation led by the Oba himself. This was not a casual visit. It was a declaration. The king's entourage moved with ceremony, their steps echoing his status, their voices carrying his message. The bride's father, the Odienware, was honored, his decision respected, but there was no room for refusal. The Oba's choice was not a request, it was a command. This union wasn't just about 2 families. It was a joining of lineages, a weaving of destinies. The woman chosen would not just become a queen, she would embody a legacy. And so the wedding preparations began, a flurry of activity that resonated through the kingdom. Artisans were commissioned, messengers set in motion, and a hush fell over the city. For this was not just a celebration, it was a spectacle. Benin's kings weren't just rulers, they were embodiments of the divine. Their weddings, a fusion of earthly joy and spiritual reverence. The ceremony itself was a carefully choreographed dance. The bride, adorned in ivory and gold, symbolizing purity and wealth, would enter the great court. Her every step watched over by priests and maidens. The Oba waited on his throne, a colossus of bronze and brass, a symbol of his kingdom's power and his lineage's endurance. When the bride arrived, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation. Incense filled the air. The rhythmic chanting of priests reverberated through the court, and the Oba's gaze met his bride's. This was not just a meeting of two individuals. It was the joining of two halves of a whole, the king and his queen, the ruler and his realm. The ceremony commenced with offerings to the ancestors, ensuring their blessings upon the union. Then came the vows, not spoken aloud, but exchanged in the silent language of tradition, a bond sealed with the weight of history. Finally, the crowning moment, the public appearance of the royal couple, the king and his newly-wed wife. A tableau of power and partnership, their images imprinted on the minds of the kingdom, a testament to the enduring legacy of Benin's royalty. But the celebration didn't end at the palace gates. Every corner of Benin erupted in merriment. Market squares buzzed with activity. Craftsmen fashioned festive masks, drummers tuned their instruments, and dancers rehearsed their routines. It was a time for revelry, a tribute to the fertility of the land and the bounty of the harvest. The festival spirit wasn't confined to humans. Shrines were adorned, masquerades took to the streets, and the air was thick with the scent of roasted yams, palm wine, and cola nuts. Each participant, from the tiniest child to the oldest elder, contributed to the spectacle, making the wedding more than a ceremony, a celebration of communal joy. Even the king's enemies took a brief respite from hostilities, for this was a time for unity. The king's marriage was the kingdom's marriage, a bond that transcended differences and rivalries. It was a reminder that though the land might be divided, its prosperity was indivisible. And yet, amidst the fanfare, there was a somber undercurrent. Marriage for the Oba wasn't merely a personal affair, it was a political statement. Alliances were forged, boundaries renegotiated, and rivals appeased. Each marriage was a strategic move, a diplomatic triumph, a testament to the Oba's influence. The impact of these unions extended beyond Benin's borders. As ambassadors and emissaries traveled to neighboring kingdoms, they carried with them not just gifts, but stories of Benin's magnificence, ensuring that the Oba's marriage echoed through the corridors of power. While the bride transitioned into her new life, there was a quiet shift in the kingdom's dynamics. Her presence didn't just add to the court's grandeur, it also brought a new perspective, a different voice. Her influence, though subtle, was significant, shaping decisions, mediating conflicts, and offering counsel. Her role wasn't static, but evolved with the king's needs and the kingdom's challenges. Sometimes she served as a diplomat, extending her husband's reach and influence. At other times, she managed domestic affairs, ensuring the smooth functioning of the court and the welfare of its inhabitants. The Queen's influence wasn't a secret, but it was respected. She commanded her own retinue of attendants, many of whom were her own relatives, ensuring a continuity of loyalty and counsel. Her court, though smaller, mirrored the king's, with its own hierarchy of officials and advisors. The Queen Mother, a pivotal figure, provided not just support, but a link to her husband's past. She was the keeper of his memories, the confidant of his youth, and the narrator of his triumphs. Her wisdom, born from experience and lineage, was a guiding light for both the king and the kingdom. The Queen Mother's role wasn't merely advisory, but foundational. She was the custodian of traditions, the interpreter of customs, and the anchor of continuity in times of change. Her presence ensured that the Oba didn't just rule, but ruled with understanding, compassion, and foresight. This was a kingdom where gender roles were clear, but women wielded considerable influence. The Queen Mother, a testament to this, was not just a figurehead, but a powerhouse of soft power, shaping the kingdom's narrative without a crown, but with an unwavering voice. Marriage for the Oba was more than a union of hearts. It was a strategic alliance, a dynastic duty, and a divine mandate. Each union was a thread in the rich tapestry of Benin's history, a testament to the kingdom's endurance, its opulence, and its intricate social structure. Within the walls of the palace and the bustling markets, every facet of Beninese society resonated with the rhythm of the king's marriage, reaffirming not just the bond of two individuals, but the unity of an entire kingdom. As the sun rose over Benin City, a hush fell over the kingdom. It wasn't the dawn chorus or the call to prayer that dictated the pace, but the Oba's rising. His day began, not with the usual rituals, but with an unsettling quiet. Servants moved with cautious steps, their whispers hushed, their glances furtive. Even the palace drummers seemed to beat a slower, more somber rhythm, their usual exuberance dampened. There was no immediate threat, no enemy at the gate, no dispute among chiefs. Yet the atmosphere was thick with tension. For the Oba wasn't just a ruler, he was a deity in human form. His well-being was the kingdom's pulse, his health its heartbeat. A sudden illness was not just a physical ailment, it was a crisis of faith. If the Oba faltered, the kingdom's order would falter. If he weakened, doubt would creep in, and doubt was a dangerous guest in Benin. It wasn't panic, but preparation that marked the morning. Chiefs assembled, not in the bustling courtyard, but in hushed chambers, where decisions were made with grave faces and measured voices. Each leader brought his wisdom, his loyalty, and his prayers. The Oba's illness wasn't just a medical mystery, it was a challenge to the spiritual order. Diviners were consulted not to predict the future, but to understand the present. They sought answers in the entrails of sacrificed animals, in the patterns of smoke, in the flight of birds, and in the whispers of the wind. It was a time when the tangible world yielded to the intangible, when the rules of nature seemed blurred by the stakes. If the Oba, the embodiment of their faith, could fall, what hope did they have? It wasn't a question of fear, but of faith. As the day wore on, the anxiety didn't abate. People went about their duties, but their steps were slower, their smiles fewer. The rhythm of the kingdom seemed off, the melody of daily life discordant. Even the craftsmen's hammers sounded mournful, the drummers' rhythms dirge-like. The news of the Oba's illness spread like ripples on a pond, touching every corner, every courtyard, every hearth. It was a shared burden, a collective worry. At dusk, when the shadows lengthened and the air grew cooler, the town crier made his rounds, his voice echoing his message. There was no feast tonight, no music, no laughter. It was a night for sober reflection, for quiet prayer, for a kingdom to hold its breath. In the royal compound, rituals were performed not to celebrate, but to heal. Incense filled the air, prayers rose to the heavens, and offerings were made to the ancestral spirits. It wasn't a display of desperation, but of devotion. For, in Benin, faith wasn't just a Sunday sermon or a daily prayer. It was a way of life, a philosophy, a lifeline. It wove through everyday activities, through market transactions, through family gatherings, and through times of crisis. That night, the Oba lay not on a ceremonial throne, but on a sickbed. Around him were not loyal subjects, but his wives, his children, his mother, and his closest counselors. His domain, once vast and vibrant, was reduced to the four walls of his private chambers. He wasn't alone, but the weight of his suffering was immense. His pain wasn't just physical, it was existential. If he succumbed, his dynasty would falter. If he died, the kingdom's spirit would fracture. It was a night for introspection, not for lamentation, for strategizing, not for despair. As the moon climbed higher and the darkness deepened, the kingdom of Benin held its breath. A single prayer on every lip, a single wish on every mind. May the Orba live, for without him their world would shatter. They didn't know it then, but this night of worry would become a defining moment. A crucible that tested not just their faith, but their resolve. It was a night that would either reinforce their belief or shake their convictions. But as the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, one thing was certain. The Oba's ordeal was far from over. His illness was not a passing fever, but a battle for his very essence. A struggle that would echo through the halls of history. For the Orba of Benin was not just a king, he was the embodiment of his kingdom, and his fate was inextricably linked to theirs. Outside, the sun beats down on cracked earth. A lone palm tree leans in as if in prayer. The sky is heavy with haze. Villagers walk slowly, each step kicking up tiny dust devils. Their heads are bent, their shoulders stooped under the weight of clay water pots. This is not just a walk. It's a pilgrimage to the palace, a journey of hope in the face of despair. Inside the palace, an urgent quiet reigns. Chiefs sit on low stools, their faces etched with worry. The Oba, their king, their leader, sits apart. He is the wall against which their fears crash. His duty is clear. He must restore balance, not just for the sake of his people, but for the very survival of his kingdom. But here's where the true drama lies. The Oba is not just a king. He is a link, a conduit between the earthly concerns of his people and the unseen world of spirits and gods. As the drought deepens, so does his isolation. You see, in Benin, the king is not just a ruler, he's a mediator, a peacemaker between the tangible world and the intangible, between man and the gods. This makes his task even more daunting. It's not enough to simply rule. He must appease, he must negotiate, he must perform. In this time of crisis, there is no room for failure. But let's rewind a bit. Let's go back to the beginning of this story. Let's hear the whispers of the wind as it dances through the dry grasses, the rustle of leaves on trees stripped bare by the unforgiving sun. Imagine the cracked earth, thirsty for water, for life. The people look up to the sky, their faces creased with worry. Where are the rains? When will the rains return? These are not just questions, they are pleas. Now, picture this. Two deities, Olukan, the spirit of the sea, and Ojuwu, the keeper of life and death. They were once close, their domains intertwined. But something has shifted. A balance has tipped. The rains have stopped. The riverbeds are dry. The people's faith is wavering. As the drought lingers, fear takes root. The people's whispers turn to chants. Their prayers rise like incense to the heavens. Enter the priests. They are the voices of the people, their conduits to the gods. Clothed in white, their bodies painted with chalk. They carry gourds filled with sacred water drawn from rivers that seem oblivious to the drought. They move with purpose through the parched landscape, each step a testament to their devotion. Their destination, the palace, where the Oba awaits them. Let's pull back the curtain on the palace. Inside, the Oba sits upon coral-beaded thrones, his presence commanding respect and attention. His gaze is steady, his posture a reflection of the burden he carries. He is not just a ruler here. He is a link to the divine, and it is through him that the people's prayers reach the gods. Before him kneel the priests, their voices echoing with power and reverence. They pour libations onto the earth, their words a mix of supplication and command. To Olukan, the deity of the sea and wealth, they cry out, "O Olukan, bring back your gifts of rain and replenish the source of our lives." Their words dance on the air, carrying with them the hopes and fears of an entire kingdom. They call upon Ojuwu, the keeper of life and death, whose domain straddles the thin line between existence and non-existence. "O Ojuwu, turn your face towards us, the children of Benin, and restore the balance of life." Now, as the priests chant, the Oba listens intently. He is not merely present, he is engaged, his entire being focused on the ritual. For him, this is not just a ceremony. It's a lifeline, a connection to the spiritual forces that shape their world. His body may be still, but his spirit is active, reaching out, pleading, bargaining, almost as if he, too, is a part of the prayer. Every word, every gesture, every breath is a testament to the deep bond between the ruler and his people. He is not just leading a ritual, he is participating in it. And in that shared vulnerability, there is strength, a sense of unity that transcends the boundaries of the physical world. But let's shift our focus back to the people of Benin. Remember, they are not just passive observers in this tale. They, too, play an essential role. In this delicate balance between gods and men, they are the backbone of the kingdom. While the Orba leads the spiritual front, they keep the wheels of everyday life turning. In times of plenty, they contribute their labor, their skills, their loyalty. But now, as the drought tightens its grip, their role changes. They tighten their belts, endure hunger, conserve water, drawing strength from the rituals and the promise of restoration. And then there are the dancers. Their movements are slow, deliberate, a stark contrast to the fast-paced drumming that usually echoes through the palace grounds. Each step is a prayer, a plea to the gods, a testament to the endurance of the human spirit. They are not just dancing. They are communicating, telling a story without words. In their graceful movements, they express the anguish of a people, the sorrow of a kingdom, the longing for rain, the hope for renewal. They become one with the rhythm of the earth, their bodies swaying in time with the silent drumbeat of nature's heartbeat. Theirs is a dance of resilience, a celebration of life in the face of adversity. It is a reminder that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can find a way to shine through. The OBA watches them, not as a detached monarch, but as a participant, sharing in their struggle, their faith, their hope. He sees in their dance the strength of his people, the endurance of his kingdom. It is a silent promise, a pledge to keep going, to keep believing, to keep praying. But the question remains, will it be enough? Will the gods hear their prayers? Will the rains return? Only time will tell. But for now, they dance, they pray, they hope, and they wait. And in that waiting, they find strength in each other, in their traditions, and in the promise of a better tomorrow. The Orba, the priests, and the people of Benin are engaged in a constant negotiation with the divine. They strive to maintain harmony, to restore balance, to rebuild the broken links between heaven and earth. In this intricate dance of faith and tradition, they seek not just survival, but a deeper connection to their world and its mysteries. Beneath the watchful gaze of the Orba, amidst the haunting dance of the drought, and contemplate the profound relationship between humanity and nature. Let us reflect on the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity and the enduring power of faith and tradition. For in this story, we find not just a tale of a kingdom in peril, but a mirror to our own existence, a reminder of our place in the grand tapestry of life. The stories we tell our children shape them. They mold their dreams, their fears, and most importantly, their sense of self. These tales become the foundation upon which their understanding of the world is built. And nowhere was this more true than in the heart of the Benin Empire. Welcome back to the series. Today we're diving into segment 4.3, Family Life, Dangers and Endings. Picture this. You are a child in the bustling city of Benin. Your world is filled with laughter, the rhythmic pounding of yam, and the warm smiles of your mother. You play with your siblings, chasing each other through the maze-like paths of your family compound. The air is alive with the buzz of daily life. But as you grow older, you realize there's more to this world than meets the eye. There are unspoken rules, subtle glances, and a constant undercurrent of respect that binds everyone together. The Oba, or king, is not just a ruler, he is a god. His word is law, and every member of the kingdom, from the greatest chief to the newest arrival, must abide by his decrees. Now, let's meet some key members of your family. Your father is a chief. His position grants you certain privileges, like access to better education, finer clothes, and even the chance to serve the OBA directly. This means that along with the perks, there's a lot of responsibility. Your dad has to maintain a certain lifestyle that shows his rank. He needs to offer gifts to the OBA on special occasions and always be ready to defend the king's honor. This can make him seem distant at times, lost in the duties of his position. But when he's with you, he teaches you about courage, honor, and the importance of serving the greater good. Your mother is a strong, independent woman who manages the household. She's not just a wife and a mother, she's a pillar of your family, keeping everything together. Even though women couldn't become obas, they had a lot of influence in Benin. Your mother ensures that your family's offerings to the gods are done correctly, maintains relationships with other families, and makes sure you and your siblings understand your role in society. And then there's your older brother, eager to learn the intricacies of his royal duties. He looks up to our father and hopes to one day take on his responsibilities. As for you, maybe you're more interested in the arts, finding solace in music and storytelling. Or perhaps you're drawn to the mysteries of healing. Spending time with your mother, learning about herbal remedies and ancient traditions. No matter your path, the foundation of your upbringing remains the same. Steeped in tradition, respect, and a deep connection to the spiritual world. As you navigate this world, you'll encounter various characters that add depth to your story. You'll meet loyal servants who've dedicated their lives to your family, wise elders who share tales of the kingdom's past, and perhaps a mischievous trickster spirit that adds a touch of magic to your everyday life. Each interaction shapes your understanding of the world, teaching you about loyalty, respect, and the balance between the physical and spiritual realms. Now, let's talk about the setting. Your home is a large compound with high walls made of baked clay and decorated with intricate carvings. Inside, there are several buildings, including a courtyard with a well in the center for collecting water and an audience hall where your father receives guests. Each room is filled with handcrafted items reflecting the artistic talent of the Benin people. From intricately carved wooden stools to bronze sculptures of ancestors, your home is not just a shelter, it's a testament to your family's history and status. Life in Benin was heavily influenced by the belief in a supreme god, Osanobua, and a pantheon of lesser gods and ancestral spirits. Every aspect of life, from farming to trade to warfare, was guided by religious practices. As a child, you participate in daily rituals led by priests, offering prayers and sacrifices to ensure the family's well-being. Festivals honoring various deities are a significant part of life, bringing the community together in dance, music, and celebration. Now, let's add some conflict to the mix. Remember, the Oba is considered divine, so anyone who challenges his authority risks not only their own safety, but the stability of the entire kingdom. Let's say your father criticizes the Oba's recent decisions, while he may believe he's acting in the best interest of the people. Such actions could be seen as treasonous, putting your entire family in danger. Suddenly, your life in Benin goes from a familiar routine to a battle for survival. Your father, once respected, now faces exile or even death. You and your family are forced to flee into the dense rainforest, leaving behind the only life you've ever known. In the heart of the jungle, you must rely on your wits and the skills your father has taught you to survive. You forage for food, build temporary shelters, and learn to navigate by the stars. Days turn into weeks, and the comfortable life you once knew seems like a distant dream. But the jungle also has its wonders. You witness the vibrant colors of exotic birds, the stealthy movements of forest animals, and the healing properties of various plants. Your mother's knowledge of herbs proves invaluable, helping you treat injuries and illnesses. Despite the hardships, there's a sense of freedom in this new life. Away from the rigid rules of the kingdom, you and your siblings are closer than ever. You share stories around the campfire, dreaming of a future where you can rebuild your life. Benin's society was highly stratified, with the Oba at the top, followed by chiefs, then commoners, and finally, slaves. If you were born into the wrong social class, your life would be drastically different. Imagine if your father were a commoner. Your life would continue much like before. You'd help out in the village, learn a trade, and eventually find a partner to start a family of your own. But the consequences of disobeying the Oba would be much more dire. You wouldn't have the same protections as someone of higher status. Imagine if you were captured during an enemy attack. You could be sold into slavery, separated from your family, and forced to work without pay. Your new owner could treat you harshly, and your only hope for a better life would be to earn enough money to buy your freedom. Now, let's explore a unique aspect of Benin culture, their art, from intricate wood carvings to stunning bronze sculptures. Benin art is renowned for its beauty and cultural significance. If you were artistically inclined, you could become a sculptor, working on massive projects commissioned by the Oba, or crafting smaller items for traders to sell across the empire. During festivals, you might design elaborate costumes and masks used in traditional dances. Your art could become a bridge between the spiritual and physical worlds, depicting scenes from religious ceremonies or the stories of local heroes. The art in Benin wasn't just about aesthetics. It was a powerful way to communicate history, values, and beliefs. And lastly, let's talk about death. In Benin, death was not viewed as an ending, but as a transition to another realm. Funerals were elaborate affairs, filled with rituals and ceremonies to ensure the deceased's safe journey to the afterlife. If a loved one passed away, you would help prepare their body, wrapping it in fine cloth and placing offerings nearby. The body would then be buried with traditional items like jewelry or weapons, signifying their status in life. After the burial, the family would gather to mourn, sharing stories of the deceased and celebrating their life. Death was a somber but necessary part of life in Benin. It was a reminder of the impermanence of this world and the importance of honoring those who had passed on. Welcome back. The fire is low now, the embers glowing soft against the night. We have walked through the courtyards of Benin, stood in awe of its bronzes, witnessed its kings, and felt the quiet weight of those who served in the shadows. What we have uncovered is not a single story, but a layered truth. a kingdom built on power, artistry, fear, and devotion. The kingdom of Benin was never ordinary. Its palace life showed us the tension of loyalty and danger. Its bronzes revealed the genius of artists who captured memory in metal. Its obus commanded both respect and unease, mortals whose lineage was intertwined with the divine, even in the smallest detail. A drumbeat, a strand of coral beads, a whispered prayer. Benin carried the spirit of its people, enduring beyond centuries of upheaval. Though foreign invaders would one day loot its treasures and shatter its walls, the memory of Benin has never vanished. Its bronzes sit in museums across the world. But they also live in the voices of Edo descendants, in rituals still performed, and in the way we speak of dignity stolen yet not forgotten. The kingdom was wounded, but its essence remains, reminding us that history cannot be erased, it only transforms. So tonight, as you drift toward rest, carry with you the rhythm of this kingdom. Let the memory of its palaces, its bronzes, and its people move with the quiet steadiness of the night. For Benin is not only history, it is a story that still walks beside us, a reminder of resilience, creativity, and human complexity. Before we let the night settle around us, there is one more piece of Benin's story that we must bring to light. The royal family of Benin, known as the Osama of Benin, did not simply vanish after the sack of the city in 1897. Though their kingdom had been devastated, their lineage endured. This continuity has allowed a living link to the past to thrive. Upon arriving in exile, Prince Iguabasimwin, along with other members of the royal family, sought refuge in Jamaica. However, their journey to Jamaica was not without its own hardships. During their voyage, the prince fell gravely ill, prompting his counselors to believe he might not survive the journey. Yet fate intervened. He recovered, demonstrating resilience and determination in the face of adversity. In Jamaica, Prince Iguabasimwin and his followers were welcomed by King Edward VII, who granted them asylum and even provided financial support. Their stay in Jamaica was marked by cultural exchanges and a sense of shared history between the two nations. Meanwhile, back in Benin City, despite the destruction wrought by the British, the royal family's influence and identity persisted. This became evident during the Second World War, when members of the Osama's family returned to Benin City at the request of the British authorities. They were asked to raise a local regiment to fight for the British colonial forces. This experience marked a significant moment where the royal family began to reclaim a part of their heritage amidst the ruins of their kingdom. After the war, Prince Iguabasimwin and some members of the royal family eventually returned to Nigeria. Upon their return, they faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives and re-establishing their presence in a drastically changed Benin City. Nevertheless, they persevered, determined to honor their ancestral legacy and contribute to the development of their community. Today, the Osama of Benin continue to play an important role in the cultural and traditional life of the Edo people. Their resilience and adaptability in the face of historical challenges serve as an inspiration and a testament to the enduring spirit of the Kingdom of Benin. As we end our journey through the Kingdom of Benin, we invite you to become part of something special. If you found this story captivating, please don't keep it to yourself. Share the magic with others. And if you're moved by our storytelling, consider supporting us. Your support will help us continue to bring these incredible histories to life. Together, we can ensure that stories like this endure and inspire future generations. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary adventure. Until next time, may the spirit of Benin's resilience and creativity continue to inspire you. You are under Baobab skies.